Hello, I'm Donna Bush, and today we're here to highlight the findings of the 2022-2023 Education Data Report. I have some guests joining me here in the studio for this discussion. They are Mr. Mark Ray, the Director of the Department of Education Services, Ms. Lynette Monteith, she's the Acting Chief Officer for the Ministry of Education, and Mr. Wingrove Hunt. He is a Senior Manager of Data and Testing Services and the CXC Local Registrar. Thank you all for being here with us today to have this candid discussion. Let's begin by introducing the report, Ms. Lynette, and really giving the public the view on the purpose of the report, really.
The Ministry of Education and the Department of Education Services produce data reports annually. And you mentioned the 2022-2023 data report because this data report reflects the performance of our students over the last academic year. And I think that's an important point to make at the outset. We concentrate on two main areas, that of attendance, and for the attendance we look at public and private school attendance. So we look at trends, we look at differences between genders over attendance. We also look at attainment across our primary school and our secondary school at the two key stages, Key Stage 2, which is our Year 6 students transitioning to secondary school, and our Key Stage 4 students, Year 11 and Year 12, who would have taken external examinations. So we're able, through these reports, to look at the performance of the students, trends over year by year and over years. So in the report, you will see a comparison across maybe the last 5 years of attainment. And we're also able to not only compare year by year, but we can analyze to look at the areas that we need to work on. But very importantly too, the areas that we celebrate, because each year there is much to celebrate.
Right.
So that is basically what our report is about.
Okay.
And you notice that it's just called a data report.
Right.
We do have plans for the very near future to make it a national data report. So we'll be looking at attainment for private schools as well, so that our community and our populace can see education, the education system in totality.
Okay, well, you spoke about trends. So let's talk about the trends in student attendance, for instance. Mr. Ray, Mr. Hunt.
Well, the trends in relation to attendance, we're speaking only about public schools. We are, over the last 3 years since COVID, we have stabilized, so we are in the region of about 90%. That's not where we want to be, but the lingering effect of COVID is still with us, and respiratory diseases and so on. We have found a number of ways to sort of hybrid ways to deal with that kind of situation, to raise the attendance with students who are at home or where they're still engaging, because we do have the facilities now for computers with most students, that kind of system. And we do have platforms to communicate with parents or students. So we are able generally to, even though that they're not face-to-face situation, they are engaging from a distance learning kind of scenario.
Okay.
So at the moment, face-to-face attendance is about 90%.
Okay. Well, I think in most cases, many people would say that that's excellent, and it really just speaks to worldwide what education is like.
Yes.
The new trends in education, we're a lot more, there's not as much as before face-to-face in class. I mean, universities all over the world are all doing it, where they're doing everything virtually. So I think it kind of speaks to what's happening, what we're seeing here. Let's talk about particularly this key stages that Ms. Lynette mentioned earlier, the trends in student attainment as far as Year 6 students, that's Key Stage 2. Can we talk a little bit or break that down in numbers?
We should first give context
Sure.
to the attainment
Yes.
that is currently exhibited by students. we did introduce a new curriculum in 2019, and we have not had a smooth introduction of that curriculum because of, I guess people obviously have COVID.
Yes.
But there are landmarks that you that you have to adjust. So we did not have a smooth transition as we would have loved to have had. So the first year that we were going to introduce it, they canceled the exam in UK, so we couldn't do that. So we have done it now for 2 years. 2024 will be the third year that we're doing it. So we don't have trends per se, but we do have a comparison between what the performance was like in 2022 and what the performance was like in 2023. And from what we can see, it's stable. It's a stable situation. We do know that there is quite a bit of gap filling that needs to be done to bring our students up to where they should be, but we are making progress in that area as well.
Okay. You mentioned the introduction of a new curriculum back in 2019, and then we had COVID. How long, realistically, do you expect, or would one expect, to see the results of the introduction of a new curriculum, considering that we had COVID? And COVID has kind of lasted like 2 years, from 2020 to 2022. But normally, how long would you expect for a new curriculum for you to start seeing the kind of results that you want?
At least 5 years.
5 years.
Yes.
So in a great context of things, with COVID being in there for 2.5 years, I mean, we're really on par with where we want to be.
Yes.
Okay. So let's talk about the achievement percentages in things like grammar, reading, math, and writing.
Yes. So when we look at Key Stage 2, I think, as Mr. Vengrova said, it's fairly steady. We've stabilized to some extent. We are not where we want to be, but I do recognize that there are a number of key things in English and mathematics that contribute to our student attainment. In discussion with our subject specialists, they've identified things like number facts, they've identified things like critical thinking and analysis for data, and these are the things not just applicable to mathematics, but across the board. So when we look at the trends comparison of 2022 to 2023, for grammar, punctuation, and spelling, in 2023, we were 1 percentage point higher, 59% versus 58% of the students attaining. Reading, again, 43% in 2023, 42% in 2022. Writing, we're on par, 46% both years. Mathematics, we're down 1% from 42% to 41%. So we recognize that we're not where we want to be. But one of the important things would be the strategies and interventions that are being put in place to address these things. So there are a number of areas where we're delivering professional development. We look at quality first teaching, which is critical for student attainment. We are also looking very heavily at the observations and walkthroughs, book scrutiny, so that senior leadership are in a position to give feedback to teachers with regard to the way in which lessons are delivered, the analysis of data, the interventions that are put in place. So it is a structured way of approaching the student attainment and progress.
Right.
Because attainment being one thing, but we also want to see progress. We may not be where we want to be, but we want to see a movement, an upward trajectory.
Right.
And that may be a good segue into the Key Stage 4 attainment.
Yes.
And at Key Stage 4, we've seen significant progress over 2022.
These are year 11.
Year 11 and year
12.
12 students.
Okay.
And at Key Stage 4, excuse me, we have seen significant increases in our English scores, the number of students attaining an English pass at level 2. And level 2 is considered A, B, C, grade 1, 2, or 3 at GCSE and CXE respectively. We have seen increases which would be particularly heartening for me in mathematics, where we were at 39% in 2022, and in 2023 we were at 52%, I believe it was.
Wow.
So we're seeing the progress. Are we where we want to be in mathematics? No. Are we progressing? Are we on an upward trend? Yes. Again, science as well, holding pretty steady and having increases in that area as well. So the metrics that we utilize to measure where we are with those core subject areas in addition to our national expectation of 5 or more level 2 passes, that has also jumped. So that moved from 30% to the high 40s. So once again, we're seeing double-digit increases. As mathematics goes, so goes the national result, right? So where we're seeing challenges with mathematics, we will see a similar level with regard to the number of students attaining. But importantly, if we were to look at the number of students, for example, that are attaining 5 or even 7 passes at CXC or GCSE, I think it's safe to say that we are seeing a very positive upward trend.
Okay. Can we talk about the value-added analysis for how it showed improvement for year 11 students in particular?
Sure. So when we look at the value added, one of the things that is important for us is understanding what the predictors are saying. So students, they have an established baseline which kind of says, well, we expect that the student will attain a certain number of passes or a certain grade in a subject area. When we look across our entire government education system, we are seeing significant value added at the end of Key Stage 4. We recognize there's work to be done in Key Stage 2. At primary, there's work that we're continuing to do. But ultimately, a child coming into our system at primary, leaving our system at Key Stage 4, we are seeing significant value added. For those students who were predicted to have the lowest returns in terms of their Key Stage 4 results, in English, let's start with English, approximately 1.7 percentage points, about 2 percentage points higher than their actual grade was about 2 percentage points higher than what was predicted. In science, it was about 1.5, and in mathematics, about 0.75 or so. Okay. So in every instance, it's a positive gain. We are seeing higher positives in English, science, and positives in mathematics as well. So the value that's added at the end of the day, and I don't know if Mr. Hunt wants to add to this, but also the value that's added at our year 12 as well. I think we are seeing definite value for money with regard to what students are able to leave our education system with.
Okay. I'm not sure you're able to discuss this, but you know, as a parent of children who've gone through the education system, what role does parents really play in getting, because we're holding all of you accountable, we're holding the teachers accountable, but how important is it for parents to really get down and get ingrained and embedded into what their children are doing at school? And how do you think that's going to help the system in the future?
Yeah, I'm sure everyone would have a lot to contribute on that point. So I'll start and I'll allow the others to chip in. But we can't overemphasize the importance of parental involvement. From attendance at school to engaging in understanding just what your child is learning at school. So all of our schools engage with parent evenings and parental exercises with regard to understanding the mathematics or the language structures that they're learning in school and so on. And where we see the turnout of parents being high, that's where we see the best outcomes for students, to be honest with you. At the end of the day, if we have invested parents who they themselves may not be in a position to necessarily provide the support to give the answer to the question or help them work out the question, but just the support to say, you can do it. Ensure that they're there, that they're investing the time, reading with them. Parental support is paramount.
And we do understand that parents, are busy, and involved in a number of different activities as well. But and they might not be able to come to, say, a parent-teachers meeting. So we have developed systems that engage with parents, whether it's via Zoom, whether it's on our online platforms, through Microsoft Teams, or a variety of platforms that we use in order to engage parents so that they can see the reporting, even the reports that go home to the parents now. We have systems that we can email the report to the parent, or they can log into our system, our platforms, and see the reports of their students. So there are a variety of ways that we have tried to engage this hybrid systems that we've been trying to look at, a variety of ways of engaging parents, which do not require that they attend necessarily the school system. We find it difficult to do so. So we are trying to engage them.
Yeah, Ms. Lynette, you've been in the system a long,
Yes.
long time, and you've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of students go through the system here in Cayman. What are your thoughts on this?
And I concur with my colleagues, and I think that we can't state it enough, parental support. And as Mr. Ray said, you're not only supporting them in perhaps providing a space, maybe just that psychological support. You can do this. I know you may have a little issue. Have you spoken to your math teacher or your English teacher? Just that support sometimes and that interest in what they're doing. And as Mr. Hunt said, there are many, many different ways for parents to be engaged. We're in the digital age, so even if you're joining a meeting by phone, you can do that whilst you're on your job or on your break. So cannot state too much the importance, and you do find that those parents who are engaged and involved, those children do thrive and they do really well. So I am going to concur with my colleagues here on that.
Yeah, and I was just thinking a bit about the things that impact student outcomes the most, and we have quality teaching, but certainly teacher and student efficacy as well. So where a child or a teacher believes that a student can achieve, these are critical things. And having students engage in explaining their learning as well. So as a parent, one of the things that you can do is just have the conversation, tell me what you learned today. And having a child talk through what they learned is one of the best ways to help them to re-engage with the content that they would have covered and to recap, and for you to get a sense of, oh, this might be something I need to touch base with the teacher on, or what the case may be. Where we have parent evenings, a number of schools allow students to lead some of those parent evenings. So students are actually there explaining why this score is this way and what I've learned, and make the presentation to the parent with the teacher there. So where we have leadership being demonstrated and students allowed to be leaders in their learning, this is where we will continue to see improvements.
As a parent of former students of the school system, one of the things that I always used to do is, for instance, your child would know how to read, but I would always say to them, do you understand what you read?
Yes.
Because comprehension is so important.
Absolutely.
You can read, but if you didn't understand what you read, so it goes back to the same thing that you were just saying. So let's discuss the importance of the continued investment in public education and the strategies that the DES has in place to ensure that improvement continues and progress is definitely being made.
Absolutely. So in the government education system, we are very, very blessed to be able to take students from all backgrounds, all socioeconomic classes. So there is not it's not a situation where there is any discrimination or a refusal of a student. So in so doing, we are required to expend large amounts of funding, because we need to make sure that the interventions are in place for students who may be coming and not having the opportunity to even focus on a math question because the home environment is so challenging. So we have the therapeutic supports that are in place. We have the partnerships with our other governmental agencies, with social workers and other agencies. So the idea of the investment in education is critically important, and also the fact that while the Ministry of Education and Department of Education Services have responsibility for education in the Cayman Islands, that education is everyone's responsibility. So when we have the partners coming on board and supporting, this is where we'll see the greatest benefits. From our standpoint at the Department of Education Services, we are looking a lot more holistically at the outcomes for students and for schools. So we are looking importantly at joined up approaches to school improvement, for example. So we don't just have our school improvement officers going in. We have Mr. Hunt and his team supporting on the data analysis piece. We have the specialists looking from a teaching and learning strategic standpoint and also operationally. We have support with busing, we have support with school meals. So when you think of all the things that are tied into delivering a quality education product, we are working to make sure that we have all the partners on board so that holistically we are treating the child. We aren't just trying to impart knowledge and facts, very important, but we have to make sure that a child is well, the child is supported, and families are in a position to provide that support as well. So the things that we are doing are kind of geared towards making sure that we have that collaborative approach.
I mean, the dynamics of the education system as it relates to Cayman is like everything else. We're a melting pot of nationality. I mean, you have to deal with so many different dynamics in our school system, as opposed to some of the countries, most other countries in the region where the population of students are from that country. So it's a hard task. Any final words and to our viewers who may need to know the facts that are in this report, because you know there are people out there who are going to be negative, who are going to be naysayers, and questioning, what the findings of the report. So they're not concerned, and they have all the facts that they need. Any final words from each of you?
So I just want to add a little bit to what Mr. Ray was saying from the minister's standpoint. One of the strategic areas we look at is what are those barriers for students reaching their potential. So Mr. Ray mentioned the free school meals. There's been a lot of investment in, for example, the one-to-one laptop initiative where all of our students have laptops. There's been a lot of support from the government of the day, as well as great foresight from our minister in terms of supporting schools with additional support assistance, some of whom are interventionists. They do that is their work, working with students, closing those gaps. And then there are other assistant teachers. We are now looking at the math specialists. We heard mentioned before about the math scores and working with that. So our minister, with the support of her colleagues in the ministry and the government, is also looking at those areas that they can support the Ministry of Education and the Department of Education Services in removing those barriers. So I'd like to, publicly say, thank you, a big thank you. Without their help, a lot of these initiatives and a lot of these programs and interventions wouldn't be possible. And I would just like to close by saying, each year we do produce these reports. And I would like you listening viewers to know that it is a snapshot of the year past, and also a good way for us to keep looking at the work that we're doing, looking at the impact of that, the interventions, at the programs, etc. And for persons to give us their feedback. We now have many different avenues by which persons can give feedback, the social media, the websites, when we publish. So we would welcome any feedback, and our parents in particular do ask questions if you perhaps don't understand something that is in the report and how that relates to the students and their progress.
Okay, Mr. Hunt?
Yes, I would like to underscore that idea of feedback, because I know we've tried our best to make the report as straightforward as possible, but there are issues. There will be some information in there which is not quite clear. So we need to hear from parents what they think, and I want to underscore this idea that in terms of our the emphasis on added value, we have a significant proportion of our students who, once they met the national standard, they have gone on into honors. I think that part is understated in most cases. So we have a significant number of our students who, once they met the standard, go on to meet honors level and even high honors.
Yeah.
So if we look at the performance of our system, it's doing reasonably well.
Okay. Mark?
Sure. So for me, it's definitely about recognizing where there's additional work to be done, but unapologetically celebrating the progress that's being made. Because I think at the end of the day, if people were to take a critical look at the report, they will identify that we haven't tried to hide anything here, right? We have presented the facts as the facts. we can never fudge the data. Well, not that we can never, but we don't fudge the data.
Right.
We don't fudge the data. The data is the data.
Right.
And at the end of the day, we need to present the data. But what is important is that we identify the strategies to address the areas of concern and continue to celebrate the areas of success and replicate those successes where appropriate. So for me, I would just encourage the public, again, in terms of the feedback, but to engage with the report. If you find it too tedious in terms of the reading, we have a fact sheet that's being shared on social media and the various ministry platforms. Engage with that, ask the questions, and we're more than happy to answer.
All right, so I thank each of you for being here this morning or today to discuss the findings of the 2022-2023 Education Data Report. And of course, to you, the viewing public, we hope that you've gained more knowledge and of course, listen to the facts from this report. And I thank you for joining us.